Hate's a strong word, isn't it? But, you know, we all have those little things in life that really get us down. Most of mine don't normally involve music in any sort of way or another. Most of my hate is generally put towards people who drive too close to me as I'm trying to cycle wherever I'm going, nearly knocking me off my favoured two-wheel form of transportation. That being said, there are times in music where I have found a certain distaste or displeasure with what I'm listening to. So I figured I'd take a sample here of 10 albums that when I first listened to them, I really didn't like them. But over the years, for whatever reason, which we'll get into, I have seen the light. I have come to realize the error of my ways, and I now see these as shining, sterling examples of their own individual musical craft. So, without getting too much waffling going on here, let's get right into things in alphabetical order via the artist's name. Yeah, those of you who know me well enough will know that Between the Buried and Me's Colours is my favourite album of all time, but it never used to be the case. I first heard this record when I really wasn't in the mood for death growl. You know, it did take me a little bit of encouragement, shall I say, to actually start appreciating the more vicious side of the metal spectrum, shall we call it. And let's be real, Tommy Rogers' growl is monochromatic at best, shall we say. So it didn't really come as much of a surprise that I didn't gel with this album when I first heard it. I just thought it was too loud, too aggressive, too acerbic, didn't enjoy it at all. But the more people kept insisting to me that it was one of the best sort of progressive metalcore albums that's ever been made, I kept occasionally coming back to it. I kept occasionally figuring out little bits of it here and there that worked for me. And before you knew it, I'd forgiven all the previous transgressions I had with it, and I found myself utterly enthralled by what lay within. I think this is probably the ultimate, you know, rags to riches story of this video. It doesn't really get much better than calling something I used to hate my favourite album of all time, does it? But that doesn't mean that there aren't any more exciting stories within this video. Yeah, Cardiac's Sing to God. Now, anybody who's listened to Cardiacs before will kind of know just how Marmite they are, shall we say. They're not an easy band to listen to. They're very unusual, I think is probably the politest way of putting it. This weird sort of progressive punk thing that they've got going on can be a little bit of a bitter pill for people to swallow. Now, I was first introduced to Sing to God through the Devin Townsend podcast, of all things. He played Dog Like Sparky. I thought it was kind of interesting, kind of quirky, and I figured, screw it, let's check out the rest of the album and see what it's all about. And I didn't like it. I really, really didn't get it. But a lot of that comes down to the fact that I went into a Cardiacs album knowing nothing about Cardiacs, and that's a really, really dangerous thing to do. This is the sort of music you really need a little bit of prep time for, because if you're not going into this with any knowledge of what you're going to be expecting, then it's going to come out of nowhere, it's going to blindside you, you're not going to like it because it's so weird, it's so different. But now that I've had the time and the years and the opportunity to build up a taste, shall we say, for this weird kind of music, I adore this album now. I think it's wonderful. It's quirky in a way that I really appreciate now. It's creative in ways I was never expecting. And it built up such an appreciation for me with Cardiacs that I just dove back into their past albums, and they've fast become one of my favourite bands of all time as a result. I am still trying to figure out my thoughts on the new one, LSD, but it's taking me a little bit of time. So watch this space. Maybe a full review will come on that one. Don't know yet. Hopefully it will. Deafheaven with Infinite Granite. Yep, this is the one that really divided the fan base. Oh boy. If you were around when this album first came out and you were into the scene at the time, you will have noticed that there was a certain degree of, how shall I put this politely, spirited discourse about this album and its change in direction. And I will confess, at the time, being as I was hot off the heels off of Sunbather, Ordinary Corrupt Human Love, New Bermuda, you know, Roads to Judah, I was like, what the hell is this? This is weird. Why have they just turned into a post-rock band, and not even a very good post-rock band at that? I was like, I don't like this. Where is the harshness? Where's the screams? Where's the anger? I was like, no, please no, don't do this to me. So I kind of shoved it off to one side for a little bit, and I just kind of ignored it, forgot about the album for like 6 months or whatever. But then I don't know, I had a compulsion to come back to it. I just thought to myself, maybe I missed something the first time. So I put it on, and I think I listened to it about 3 or 4 times in a row one day, and it just clicked. I threw aside my previous expectations, told myself, don't listen to this as if you listened to something that you wanted, like Sunbather or whatever. This is something new. This is something different. And I was finally okay with that. I would probably put this like easily amongst the best of Deafheaven's albums now. I adore it. I think it is a beautiful little curio within their catalogue, and definitely something that if you have been against it in the past, maybe, just maybe, spin it another couple of times, try and approach it with as an open mind as you can do, and appreciate it for what it is rather than what it isn't. Bit of an oddball, this one, Gandalf's Fist and the Clockwork Fable. I first came across this album, I don't really remember the specifics, but it was on a forum somewhere online. I don't remember which one it was. One of the many forums that I tend to sort of browse these days. And it was like, this is a 3-hour-long concept album. And I was like, okay, I like my long albums. I do. I love concept albums. I do. 3 hours is a lot, but screw it. Let's give it a go. I found it very challenging. It was very challenging. When you stop to think about it, 3 hours on one album, that's a long time. That's longer than most long Hollywood movies. You know, this is like Lord of the Rings level, but you've got no visual, you've only got audio. And it kind of splits itself between these purely narrative-driven tracks like a radio play and the music in between. And I just didn't get it. I was annoyed with it. It kind of drove me a little bit balmy, and I really struggled to do it. And it took me a very, very long time to get through it in one sitting, 3 hours. But eventually, after I sort of managed to reprogram my brain from thinking of it as a traditional album of 3 hours long and thinking it more of a radio play with musical interludes, it became easier to digest. You've got to think about this like you're watching a movie, you're reading a book. It's so different from the normal album experience. And as soon as I was able to figure that part out and get my brain focused on that as an approach to listening to it, everything clicked, and I absolutely adored it. It's a great story. It's a great album. The voice acting's great. The story's interesting. It's a hard one to sell just because of how long it is. But if you do ever find yourself with a little bit of a curious streak and 3 hours going spare, please do check this one out, because I do think it's absolutely worth a shot by almost anyone. Ah yes, Karnivool and Asymmetry. Now obviously it's no secret that Karnivool had released prior to this 2 of the best albums of their time, especially with Sound Awake. Honestly, one of the best albums ever made. You can quite easily quote me on that. I think it's superb from start to finish. Absolute genius. So how the hell do you follow up Sound Awake? How on earth do you make a follow-up to one of the best albums ever? The problem when I first listened to this album is I was hoping and expecting a natural follow-up, an evolution from Sound Awake into whatever the hell Karnivool wanted to do next. Instead, it was this weird, angular, off-putting strangeness that I just wasn't feeling at the time. Nothing really landed with me. There was no real hooks going on, and I don't know, it just didn't feel like what I needed from Karnivool at the time. And as a result, I barely listened to it. I gave it maybe 2 or 3 spins, realized that this direction wasn't for me at the time, and I kind of moved on with my life. It was only really about 5 or 6 years ago that I thought to myself, God, it's been a long time since we had a new Karnivool record. Thank God for 2026, am I right? And I figured, screw it, let's go back and try Asymmetry again. Now, obviously, my musical tastes have evolved and changed and matured a lot in the time since I first listened to it, and now the things that put me off it originally kind of bring me back into it. I love the quirkiness. I love the weirdness. I love the uncomfortable and distorted musicianship. I think this is a fantastic little record. It's not trying to be Sound Awake, and honestly, I'm glad. I was disappointed the first time, but now that I've come to appreciate that a band shouldn't be repeating themselves, I've come to love this one. I think Asymmetry is brilliant. I think it's a great little entry into their discography, and I hope to God that album 4 is just as interesting as this one. Leprous and Coal. Yeah, I am an old school Leprous fan. I will always and forever cite Tall Poppy, Syndrome and Bilateral as their best albums, and I love that sort of weird black metal Opethian thing they had going on in their early days. You know, the screeching from Einar was so cool. I loved the way he growled his vocals. I loved how ballsy the guitar riffs were on this, how dangerous everything felt and how threatening the albums were. And then Coal came along, and it was kind of weird and muted and very understated compared to those first few albums, and I didn't like it. It really didn't... It didn't tick the boxes that I wanted from Leprous. It was like a weird sort of diversion from their sound that they'd been building up to until this point, and I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't really my kind of thing, and again, I shelved it. I do feel, obviously, they came back hard with the likes of The Congregation and Melina. I thought those were really strong albums. And after those had come out, I thought to myself, screw it, I'm going back to Coal. Let's give it another go. Let's give it another try. And the weird atmospherics, the dark and understated atmospheres that the majority of this album was bringing absolutely knocked me on my ass when I revisited this one. I can't believe how I felt badly about this record at first. I feel so bad for that I didn't enjoy Coal the first time round. I'm like, how on earth did I feel that way now that I'm listening to it now? I will easily rank Coal as probably my third favourite Leprous album at this point. I think it is a genius work of art. It's beautiful, it's haunting, it's dark and gothic, and frankly, it is everything I want from Leprous, especially now as the band have really kind of taken a big fall from grace, at least for me. But hey-ho, who knows what the future will hold for this band. Maybe we'll get a return to this, and if we do, quite frankly, I will be welcoming it with open arms. Yeah, I wasn't going to include a sample for this one because you just know it's going to get copyright struck. But Metallica's Load, oh yeah. Slightly maybe a controversial pick on this thing because I know a lot of people still don't like this album. But damn it, I love this one. I think this is great. Obviously, I never used to think that because, like so many people, I came off the back of Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Puppets, and Justice, you know, the big four. I mean, yeah, you maybe want to include the Black Album as well. I like the Black Album. I know it gets a lot of stick from people for not being a thrash album, but screw that, it's great. But then the mid-90s happened. 1996, I believe, this album came out. And people were very confused by what they were hearing. This was definitely not thrash metal, not anymore. This is kind of like weird hard rock. And like most people, I was disappointed. I was like, what the hell is this? This is not Metallica. Who is this band? I was confused. Everyone was confused. People sort of lashed out a little bit at this one, and it's had a lot of bad rep in recent years. Now, obviously, I have changed my stance on this since then, because once again, like so many things on this list, it was about reevaluating my expectations from the album, from the band, you know. And once you come to accept the fact that, okay, sure, Metallica are known as a thrash metal band, and they always will be known as a thrash metal band, especially because in recent years, like with Hardwired to Self-Destruct and 72 Seasons, they've been bringing back that vibe. But I just think it makes Load, and to a lesser extent Reload, all the more charming in their discography. It's these weird little 90s side project almost that they've done. There's so many great songs on this album that I just find so endearing in a weird sort of look at them trying their best kind of way to make this sort of weird hard rock. Is it the best Metallica album of all time? Good lord, no. I mean, there's no question at all that this is not a great album, but it is still an album that I unequivocally love. I have so many fond memories of this now, thinking back to the mid-90s when I joined the hate train. All my friends at school were telling me how rubbish it was, and I agreed with them, and we all dunked on this album so hard, but secretly part of me was still kind of enjoying it, you know? So I'll always go back to Load with a little bit of a nostalgic smile on my face. Stephen Wilson with Grace for Drowning. Yes, didn't like this at all when it first came out. Now, I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that this was my first album of his solo work that I actually listened to. I managed to miss Insurgentes and just completely bypass that initially and went straight into Grace for Drowning. Probably not the smartest thing for me to have done, given the fact that most of my exposure to Stephen Wilson's work was, of course, at that point with Porcupine Tree. And after the admittedly disappointing for me, The Incident, I was really hoping for a little bit more of a bounce back from Stephen. Given the fact that I am, at best, neutral on like this whole King Crimson-y style of minimalist, atmospheric, classic 70s prog rock, it came as very little surprise that I didn't enjoy Grace for Drowning on my first listen. I thought it was meandering, boring, insipid nonsense, and I was like, oh no, he's gone full art student and it's really annoying. So I shelved it, I threw it in the bin, I didn't want to look at this album, I didn't want to listen to this album. Thankfully, he brought things back for me with obviously the two-hit combo of Raven and then Hand Cannot Erase. Hell yeah, let's go, two of the best albums ever. But it was in the wake of listening to these two masterpieces that I thought to myself, maybe I really was just missing something with Grace for Drowning. So I went back to it, and sure enough, it was me. I had been missing something. There was a secret sauce there that I just didn't have the palate for when I first listened to this. But now that I've taken the time to figure it out and to better understand Stephen as a solo artist, I can see what he was doing with this album, and I've come to appreciate it enormously. Yes, it's overblown, pompous, self-indulgent wankery, but would it really be a Stephen Wilson project if it wasn't? I think it's great. It's really taken its time to grow on me. I don't know if I'd put it in like my top 3 of his albums or anything like that, but it's so much better than I remember it being when I first listened to it. Oh, Ex-Japan and Art of Life. Now, I have cited this as being one of my favourite single-track albums of all time, and I will stand by that. I would say this is easily a top 20 record of all time as well. Single track be damned or not. But again, like everything on this list, I did not like this when I first heard it. Don't remember what it was or where it came to me from. Somebody must have recommended it, probably on one of my many internet adventures that I so often go on. And I was like, okay. Now, bearing in mind, I had no prior warning from anyone with what to expect. It was just a case of, this rules. You like long songs, you like progressive metal, you'll like this. I was like, okay, sure, I'll take it, you know. I'll go with that recommendation. I do like progressive metal, you know, I do like long songs. Let's press play on Art of Life. And it started so well, you know, it starts off so well, it's so friggin' good. The atmospherics are there, the big guitars come in, these crunchy hair metal inspired riffs, the interesting vocal direction initially, which again, I didn't initially enjoy, but came to appreciate as time went on. But then the almost deal breaker, and anybody who's ever listened to Art of Life probably has an idea where I'm going with this. Yes, it's the piano solo. You think, oh, a piano solo. Why would you be so uptight about a piano solo? Well, the fact that the piano solo just goes on for 8,000 years for a start, and then it just descends into what sounds like mindless head bashing on the keys. You know, Ebony and Ivory are getting an absolute brutalizing here from basically Muhammad Ali on the keys, you know. It's like, come on, give it a break. You know, he's already dead, leave him alone. But the more I came back to this one, the more that people kept insisting that, you know, oh, the piano solo is just, it's like, you know, you've got to get used to it. You've got to this, that, and the other. I'm thinking, yeah, but why should I have to get used to something that I think sucks? But people are correct. That's it. You do have to get used to the piano solo. They're not wrong. It's more about appreciating and understanding the aesthetic and the theming and the idea behind that piano solo. Yes, I'm harping on about it a lot, but like I say, if you've listened to this song, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't listened to this song, you will soon know what I'm talking about. But trust me when I tell you that everything about that piano solo is so structured and so by design that when it finishes and you can breathe that sigh of relief from the intense, chaotic madness of it all, as everything sort of segues back into this huge diving riff of mad guitars, swirling just everything. Oh, it's just so good. It's such a crushing moment. It's so powerful. And every little bit leading up to that sort of re-entry into the main song, it's beautiful. It's absolutely incredible. I hated it at first. I felt it ruined the song. But now that I look back, I realize how wrong I was and just how incredible that piano solo truly is, especially when you take it in context with the rest of the music. Please give this album a try. You probably hate it first, but do stick with it because it's so good. Uh-oh. Oh boy. Yeah. Ugh. Maybe I should just leave. I should maybe just leave. Like, I'll just show myself out. I'll just pick up all my stuff and I'll walk out the door and I'll never come back because I probably just annoyed everybody watching this by including this on the list. Yes, ladies, gentlemen, non-binary pals of all ages. I, a self-confessed progressive rock and metal YouTube person, did not like Close to the Edge when I first heard it, but no, please no cancelizations here. Please don't unsub and run off and tell everybody that I'm a terrible person for having awful opinions about music. Remember, this is from hate to love. This has a happy ending, so don't worry. A lot of this comes down to the fact that at the time I first listened to Close to the Edge, I was not in a prog rock headspace, let's put it that way. I first heard this at a time when, how shall I best put this? My favorite album, when I first heard this album, I'm going to sound like such a... Okay, look, I'll just rip the Band-Aid off. My favorite album at the time of listening to this was a friggin' Papa Roach album, okay? I was like 14, give me a break, okay? Nu metal was like the thing. I was all into that mad riffs and rap vocals and all that stuff, yada, 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 yada. Dark period of my musical listening, I know. And then somebody was like, oh, you have to listen to this. It's like the greatest album of all time and this, that, and the other, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, sure, okay, calm down. I'll listen to it. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I thought it was garbaggio. At the time of listening to this in my teenage years, if you'd asked me what is the worst record of all time, I'd have pointed at Close to the Edge and said, that one right there, it's awful. Now, the problem is that I had such a strong sort of like pubescent association of negativity with Close to the Edge that it took me a good 10 to 15 years to try it again. Thankfully, for everybody concerned, especially yours truly, I saw the light. Now, I will never call Close to the Edge my favourite Yes album. That's still the Yes album. You know, I mean, controversial pick as it may be, I love that. But I will now happily say, at the very least, that Close to the Edge is a masterpiece of progressive rock, and 14-year-old me is a little dumbass. So there you have it. There are 10 examples of albums that I first hated, and through various different personal circumstances found myself growing to love. I did have to trim this list down from quite a few, so I don't know, maybe if this does well enough, I'll do a part 2 of this and I'll talk about the rest of the albums that I despised. Or maybe we'll do it the other way around, you know? Maybe I'll talk about albums that I used to love and now would use as coasters at best. Let me know in the comments down below what albums you hated at first, but now form part of your daily rotation. Let's get a dialogue going, and please don't crucify me for my teenage self's opinions on Close to the Edge. If you did make it this far into the video, thank you very much indeed for watching. And as always, guys, until next time, keep your rhyme signatures pretty odd.